We journey back to Florence, Italy, around the year 1500, a pivotal time in European history. Here lived Niccolò Machiavelli, a name synonymous with political strategy and cunning. He was a man whose life and work were profoundly shaped by the ever-shifting sands of political chaos that defined his era. Florence was not a unified nation, but a city-state, an independent entity. It was often embroiled in war, its fate determined by a constant struggle for power among rival families and ambitious leaders. Machiavelli, a keen observer of the political landscape, meticulously observed, analyzed and learned from these turbulent times. He distilled his hard-won insights, his observations of human behavior and political maneuvering into a single groundbreaking book, The Prince. Why did he write it? What drove him to pen such a controversial and enduring work? Not simply for the fleeting allure of fame, but with a more pragmatic goal in mind, to regain political favor. Machiavelli had lost his esteemed position after the powerful Medici family seized control of Florence, ushering in a new era. The Prince was, in essence, his carefully crafted offering to Lorenzo de' Medici, the new ruler. It was a strategic bid to return to the world of public service, to once again contribute to the governance of Florence. Instead of offering the traditional gifts of gold or vast tracts of land, Machiavelli presented something far more valuable, his hard-won knowledge and understanding of statecraft. He offered his profound insights into the nature of power, the complexities of human psychology, and the intricacies of political maneuvering. He drew upon his own experiences in the Florentine government, as well as the lessons gleaned from the annals of history. His ultimate hope was to provide Lorenzo with the tools and knowledge necessary to rule Florence effectively and maintain his grip on power. This seemingly small book, however, would soon become a weighty and influential manual for leadership, studied and debated for centuries to come. It was not a treatise on how to be an ideal ruler, a virtuous king, or a noble leader. Instead, it was a pragmatic guide focused solely on what a prince must do, regardless of moral considerations, to gain and keep power. Machiavelli's stark realism represented a radical break from the long-held tradition of divine right and the notion that rulers were divinely appointed. He chose to focus on the often unpleasant and morally ambiguous realities of ruling, the difficult decisions and ruthless actions required to maintain control. His work was not concerned with lofty ideals, utopian visions, or noble concepts of governance. The Prince was, above all else, a practical survival guide for navigating the treacherous waters of a ruthless political world. It asked a fundamental question: what concrete steps must a leader take? What actions must he be willing to undertake to secure the safety and stability of his state? How should a ruler act? What choices should he make when the dictates of morality and the necessities of power inevitably collide? Machiavelli's answer, shocking to many then and now, face reality, however harsh, and abandon fantasy. And so, The Prince was born not as a work of philosophy, but as a practical guide to action. It was a blueprint for acquiring, wielding and maintaining power, a guide that continues to provoke debate and inspire action centuries after its creation. What kind of leader did Machiavelli envision for his time? What qualities would define such a ruler in a turbulent world? Not one of gentle virtues alone, but of strength, strategic thinking, and shrewdness. The survival and prosperity of the state was, according to Machiavelli, the highest goal, the ultimate responsibility of the prince. Machiavelli, with a somewhat cynical view, saw people as fundamentally self-serving, fickle in their loyalties, and ultimately unreliable in times of crisis. Therefore, a ruler cannot depend solely on their own goodness or the goodwill of others, but must always be prepared to anticipate betrayal and deception. Should a prince strive to be loved by his people, or should he aim to be feared? Ideally, a ruler should inspire both love and fear, but if forced to choose between the two, fear, he argued, is the safer and more dependable option. Love, being a voluntary sentiment, is fragile and can be easily broken by self-interest or changing circumstances. Fear, on the other hand, is maintained by the constant threat of punishment and the ruler's visible authority, making it a more reliable instrument of control. However, a truly wise prince understands the importance of avoiding hatred. He should never arbitrarily seize property or violate the sanctity of families. If cruelty is deemed necessary, it must be swift, decisive, and carefully limited in its scope. The ultimate aim is not to establish tyranny, but to foster respect, ensure the security of the state, and protect its citizens. Machiavelli's ideal prince is not a monster devoid of morality, but a pragmatic realist who understands the harsh realities of power. Power, he argued, inevitably demands difficult decisions and morally ambiguous choices. Machiavelli's advice was blunt and practical, a stark departure from traditional moral teachings. He offered a guide to power, stripped bare of idealism. A new prince must act boldly, decisively, and without hesitation, to secure his rule, establishing a firm foundation of authority. Old enemies may linger, those who resent the new regime and plot its downfall. Decisive action is needed to quell dissent and eliminate threats. Sometimes this means removing threats completely, ensuring they can no longer pose a danger. Armies matter. They are the bedrock of a prince's power. Never trust mercenaries, for their loyalty is bought, not earned, who fight only for pay and will abandon you when the price is right. True power comes from loyal citizens, those who have a vested interest in the state's success, not hired swords whose allegiance is fleeting and unreliable. Should a ruler always keep promises? Is honesty always the best policy? Machiavelli said, no, not if it endangers the state. If keeping faith harms the state, leading to its downfall or instability, a prince must break it, prioritizing the well-being of his realm above all else. Since others are untrustworthy, prone to deceit and self-interest, a ruler must be flexible, adapting to changing circumstances with cunning and resolve. Appear virtuous, cultivate an image of righteousness and integrity. Merciful, showing compassion and understanding. Faithful, honoring commitments and upholding principles. Upright, a beacon of morality and justice, but be ready to act otherwise if needed, shedding the mask of virtue when necessity demands. The art of leadership is balancing these conflicting demands, appearance and necessity, perception and reality. A prince must adapt like a chameleon as fortune and politics shift, navigating the treacherous currents of power. The preservation of the state, its security and prosperity, justifies hard choices, even those that may seem morally questionable. Machiavelli's prince is always prepared, vigilant and ready to change course, adapting his strategy to the ever-shifting landscape. Survival, not perfection, is the ultimate measure of success, is the goal, the paramount objective that guides all actions. For centuries, the prince has sparked debate. Some hail Machiavelli as a founder of modern political science, praising his realism. They argue his insights into power and ambition remain relevant. Others see the prince as a manual for tyranny, justifying cruelty and deceit. The term Machiavellian now means cunning manipulation. Critics warn, if leaders abandon ethics, what remains of justice or dignity? The prince, they fear, gives license to cast aside restraint. The book's legacy is both influential and deeply controversial. What does Machiavelli offer us today? Despite a changed world, his observations on power endure. Leadership remains complex and often ruthless. The prince reminds us face reality, not comforting illusions. It warns of the dangers when power is pursued without limits. Machiavelli forces us to confront the tension between politics and ethics. His book provokes, challenges, and unsettles. Whether seen as wisdom or warning, The Prince still matters. Its questions about power and morality remain urgent for every age.